Living alone in old age can feel like stepping into a new chapter of life, one that brings both quiet reflection and unique challenges. But more than anything, it is a time that can be empowering and deeply enriching. As someone who has embraced this stage of life, I understand how living alone shapes a person, often in ways that are unexpected. I have come across countless conversations on forums where people share their experiences. Based on those voices, here is how living alone often changes us as we grow older and how these transformations can add depth and meaning to our lives. One of the most profound things I have observed is how living alone allows individuals to reconnect with themselves. Many people mention how the absence of constant distractions enables them to rediscover who they truly are at their core. Margaret, a 65-year-old woman, shared her story in a discussion thread. After her husband passed away, she moved into a small apartment, uncertain about what the future held. For the first time in years, she had no one to cater to, and no one to share the routines of daily life. At first, she admitted that the silence was overwhelming. The quiet moments that once felt peaceful began to feel heavy, filling the space where conversation and shared experiences used to be. But slowly, she began rediscovering the things she had once loved. Gardening had always brought her joy, but in the rush of family life, she had neglected it. She started small, placing a few pots of herbs on her windowsill. As time passed, her enthusiasm grew, and she found herself adding more plants, eventually transforming her entire balcony into a lush green retreat. Margaret now jokes that she has become the crazy plant lady, but to her, this reconnection with nature has been one of the most fulfilling aspects of living alone. It was not an immediate transformation, but she gradually learned that being alone does not have to mean being lonely. It can be about rediscovering passions and filling time with activities that bring genuine happiness. When she sits down with a cup of tea and looks at her plants, she feels a deep sense of peace, one that had been missing from her life for years. Living alone also requires a sense of structure, leading many to develop new routines and rituals that provide stability and comfort. Without the presence of others dictating the flow of the day, individuals have the freedom to create schedules that cater entirely to their own needs and desires. And many people have shared how they have crafted morning rituals that feel entirely their own, whether it is savoring a cup of tea while watching the sunrise, practicing yoga, or simply sitting in silence to set intentions for the day ahead. John, a retired engineer, shared his experience in an online discussion about how living alone changed his approach to structuring his days. After spending decades waking up at 5 a.m. for work, he finally gave himself permission to sleep in. For the first time in years, he allowed his body to rest without the pressure of an alarm clock. Now, his mornings are slow and deliberate. He takes his time making coffee, sits by the window and reads the newspaper, something he never had time for during his working years. Over time, he created a new tradition. Every afternoon, he takes a 20-minute walk around his neighborhood, appreciating the fresh air and the simple act of moving at his own pace. He mentioned that these new habits gave his days a sense of rhythm and purpose, filling them with meaning in ways he had never anticipated. He once said something that resonated deeply with me. "When you live alone, your time is your own. There is no need to rush for anyone. You have the freedom to build your day exactly as you like, and there is something deeply satisfying about that." Another example comes from Lily, a widow in her early 70s. She too found that structuring her evenings transformed how she experienced solitude. Instead of allowing loneliness to settle in at the end of the day, she developed a ritual that brought her comfort. Each night she draws a warm bath, lights a few candles, and reads a book. What began as a small act of self-care soon became a cherished part of her daily routine. She described how this simple habit turned her nights from moments of isolation into times of deep relaxation and reflection. These small but intentional choices show how living alone does not have to be an experience of loss or emptiness. Instead, it can be a time of rediscovery, a chance to reshape life in a way that prioritizes peace, joy, and personal fulfillment. Living alone encourages self-reliance in ways that are both practical and emotional. Managing every aspect of daily life, from grocery shopping to home maintenance and making health decisions, becomes a personal responsibility. For many, This can feel overwhelming at first, but it also brings an incredible sense of accomplishment. For Arthur, living alone at 68 was an unexpected challenge after his wife passed away. He shared his experience on a popular online forum, describing how he felt lost when faced with everyday tasks, particularly cooking and home upkeep. Throughout his marriage, he had never cooked more than toast and eggs, relying on his wife to prepare meals. But when she was gone, he realized he had no choice but to fend for himself. He reached out to his determined to learn. Arthur turned to YouTube and began watching simple cooking tutorials. His first success was a basic pasta dish, which he proudly shared with his online community. He admitted that it was far from gourmet, but the fact that he had prepared it himself filled him with pride. Over time, his confidence in the kitchen grew. He started experimenting with different recipes and even tried making homemade bread. Now, he frequently cooks for himself, often recreating dishes his wife used to make. He jokingly remarked that she would be surprised, and perhaps even a little impressed, by how much he had learned. What started as a necessity turned into something he genuinely enjoyed, proving to himself that he was far more capable than he had believed. Then there was Joyce, who had never been particularly concerned with home maintenance. She had always relied on others to handle repairs, never needing to learn how to fix things herself. But after moving into a small house on her own, she quickly realized that independence meant taking responsibility for her living space. With the help of online forums and tutorial videos, she learned to unclog a sink, change a light fixture, and even build her own bookshelves. At first, each project felt intimidating, but with each successful repair, her confidence grew. She shared that becoming more self-sufficient had been a steep learning curve, but it gave her an immense sense of pride. She never imagined she would be the one handling repairs around the house, but now she takes joy in knowing she can fix things on her own. She reflected on how empowering it felt to realize that she was stronger and more capable than she had ever given herself credit for. One of the unexpected benefits of living alone is the freedom to indulge in hobbies, both those that have been long forgotten and those that have never been explored. Whether it is picking up an old passion or trying something entirely new, living alone provides the time and space to dive into activities that bring joy and fulfillment. Carol, now in her mid-70s, spoke about how she rediscovered her love for painting after decades of neglecting it. She had not picked up a paintbrush in over 40 years, having abandoned her artistic pursuits to focus on raising a family and building a career. But after retiring and finding herself living alone, she felt a deep longing to reconnect with something creative. Initially, she was hesitant, unsure if she still had the skill or patience to paint the way she once did, but after signing up for a local art class, she quickly realized how much she had missed it. Despite being surrounded by classmates half her age, she found joy in learning alongside them. Before long, she transformed a small corner of her living room into a makeshift studio, where she could paint freely without interruption. Now, her walls are adorned with her own artwork, a visual testament to her journey of self-discovery. She describes painting as a form of therapy, a way to express herself and reconnect with the younger version of herself that had once dreamed of being an artist. Her story is a beautiful reminder that it is never too late to reignite an old passion, and that creativity has no age limit. Similarly, Bill, a 72-year-old man living alone in Florida, found solace in an unexpected hobby: birdwatching. After his wife passed away, he struggled with grief, often feeling restless and unsure of how to fill his days. At first, he spent hours simply sitting in his backyard, watching the world pass by. Then, one afternoon, he noticed the variety of birds fluttering in and out of his garden. The more he observed them, the more fascinated he became. Intrigued, he began keeping a journal, noting the different species he encountered. Before long, he purchased a pair of binoculars, eager to get a closer look. Birdwatching soon became a daily ritual, giving him a sense of purpose and connection to the world around him. He wrote in an online forum that this simple hobby helped him heal, allowing him to find beauty in the smallest details of life. Watching the birds come and go reminded him that, even in moments of stillness, life continues to move forward. There was something profoundly comforting in that realization. Living alone often pushes people towards self-reliance, personal growth, and the rediscovery of forgotten joys. It creates an opportunity to develop new skills, embrace independence, and find fulfillment in the quiet moments that might have once seemed daunting. Living alone does not mean isolation, far from it. In fact, many people find that living alone makes their social interactions more meaningful because they have the energy and space to choose who they spend their time with. Instead of feeling obligated to engage with people out of routine, they become more intentional about reaching out to those who genuinely enrich their lives. This shift often leads to deeper, more fulfilling relationships. Doris, a woman in her late 60s, shared how living alone actually strengthened her relationships with her children and friends. Without the constant distractions of tending to a shared household, she found herself making time for intentional phone calls and coffee dates. She explained that her conversations with her daughter had never felt more meaningful because they were no longer rushed or interrupted by the busyness of daily life. They now take the time to truly listen to each other, which has brought them closer than ever before. Doris found that her friendships also deepened as she now prioritizes spending time with people who bring joy and companionship into her life. James, a retired school teacher, had always been an introvert, preferring quiet solitude over large gatherings. However, living alone helped him realize how much he valued meaningful connections with a small group of close friends. He made the decision to start scheduling weekly game nights with a few people he met at a local senior center. This simple act of gathering with like-minded friends became something he looked forward to every week. He described how these evenings filled his home with laughter and conversation, making his space feel warm and alive. For James, living alone did not mean withdrawing from the world. Rather, it allowed him to cultivate relationships that truly mattered to him. Loneliness is often a concern when living alone, especially in old age. However, many people come to understand the difference between loneliness and solitude. Solitude, when embraced, can be incredibly peaceful, providing moments of reflection and self-care. Learning to appreciate time spent alone can transform an otherwise empty-feeling home into a space of personal growth and tranquility. Anna, a widow, shared a deeply personal reflection on her struggle with loneliness after the loss of her husband. At first, the silence in her home was overwhelming. The absence of conversation and movement made her feel isolated, and she found it difficult to adjust to a life where she no longer had someone to share everyday moments with. But as time passed, she began to embrace the quiet. She started taking small steps to make her solitude feel comforting rather than isolating. One of the things that brought her peace was sitting by her window every evening with a cup of tea, watching the sun set over the trees. This simple ritual, she explained, became a form of meditation. She found solace in those quiet moments, letting the stillness of the world outside soothe her mind. Over time, she realized that solitude was not something to fear, but rather something that could bring clarity and peace. Despite this newfound appreciation for solitude, Anna acknowledged that loneliness still crept in from time to time. She found that the key was not to suppress those feelings, but to address them in ways that felt meaningful. When loneliness struck, she made an effort to reach out to her sister for a conversation, take a walk through her neighborhood, or spend a few hours volunteering at the local library. She described how being around books, helping others, and engaging with her community gave her a sense of purpose and connection. Her story highlights the reality that loneliness is a natural part of the journey of living alone, but it does not have to define the experience. By actively seeking out small, fulfilling activities and finding ways to engage with the world, she learned to balance solitude with meaningful connections. Many who live alone find that the key to contentment is learning to appreciate the quiet, while also knowing when to invite companionship into their lives. Living alone encourages people to build stronger connections with others on their own terms, while also fostering a deeper understanding of solitude. It allows them to prioritize meaningful relationships, engage in intentional social interactions, and embrace the quiet moments of life with a sense of peace. Rather than viewing solitude as a limitation, many come to see it as a source of personal growth, one that leads to a more balanced and fulfilling life. When you live alone, your home becomes an extension of who you are. Many people have shared how they have used this opportunity to create a living space that feels uniquely their own. Without the need to compromise with anyone else's preferences, they can finally decorate in a way that truly reflects their personality. Whether it is arranging furniture to maximize comfort, surrounding themselves with meaningful artwork, or choosing colors that bring them joy, living alone provides the freedom to shape an environment that feels just right. Paul, in his 60s, described how he finally had the chance to design his home exactly as he wanted. After his divorce, he moved into a small apartment, facing an entirely blank canvas. He had never put much thought into decorating before, but now that he was on his own, he saw it as an opportunity for self-preservation. He filled his walls with vintage posters from his favorite classic films and lined his bookshelves with novels that had shaped him over the years. As he settled into his new space, he realized how much a home could reflect one's identity. Looking around his apartment, he felt a sense of comfort and belonging. Everything in his space was a reflection of his interests and passions, something he had never fully embraced before. Similarly, Evelyn, a retired nurse, had always dreamed of surrounding herself with vibrant colors, but throughout her marriage, her husband preferred a more neutral palette. After his passing, she decided it was time to create a home that truly reflected her personality. She repainted the walls in warm shades of yellow and teal, colors that made her feel happy and energized. She replaced heavy curtains with airy fabrics that let in more light and added small decorative touches that reminded her of her travels. For the first time, she felt as though her home truly belonged to her. The transformation was not just about aesthetics. It was about reclaiming a space that made her feel alive. She described the feeling as liberating, as though her home now radiated the warmth and joy she had always wanted it to. When living alone, many people also become more attuned to the present moment. With fewer distractions, there is often a natural shift toward mindfulness, whether intentional or not. Daily tasks that once seemed routine take on a new depth, allowing for a greater appreciation of the small details of life. Many older adults have found that this shift leads to a deeper sense of contentment, helping them feel more connected to the world around them. Helen, a woman in her late 70s, shared how moving into a small cottage by herself unexpectedly led her to practice mindfulness. Without the constant demands of taking care of a busy household, she found herself savoring each part of her day in ways she never had before. Meals, once rushed and eaten quickly while tending to others, became an experience to be enjoyed. She found herself truly tasting her food, appreciating the textures and flavors, rather than seeing meals as something to simply get through. Even simple tasks, such as watering her plants or folding laundry, became calming rituals. She described how she would watch the sunlight filter through the trees as she drank her morning tea, something she had never paid attention to before. In these quiet moments, she found peace in the simplicity of everyday life. David, a retired teacher, had a similar experience after moving into his own place. Adjusting to solitude was not easy at first, but he soon realized that living alone gave him more space for reflection. Wanting to focus on the positives in his life, he decided to start keeping a gratitude journal. Every evening, he wrote down 3 things he was thankful for. Some days it was something as simple as hearing birds chirping outside his window. Other times it was a kind conversation with a neighbor or a memory that made him smile. Over time, he noticed that this practice changed his outlook. Instead of dwelling on what was missing, he became more aware of all the small joys in his life. He felt lighter, more at peace with himself, and more appreciative of the quiet beauty surrounding him. Both Helen and David's experiences highlight how living alone creates space for reflection and mindfulness. Without the constant noise of daily obligations, there is more room to appreciate life's smaller, quieter moments. The absence of distractions allows people to fully immerse themselves in their surroundings, fostering a sense of gratitude and presence. Whether through simple acts of self-care, moments of stillness, or new ways of appreciating everyday routines, living alone becomes an opportunity to cultivate a deeper connection to both oneself and the world. Living alone encourages a proactive approach to health, both mental and physical. Without someone constantly reminding them to stay active or eat well, older adults find that the responsibility for their well-being falls entirely on their own shoulders. For many, this newfound independence serves as a motivator, pushing them to be more mindful of their health choices and take control of their daily routines. George, a 69-year-old who shared his experience on a Healthfolic forum, admitted that when he first started living alone, he was faced with the realization that he was now solely responsible for his health. Without a partner to remind him to stay active or eat nutritious meals, he understood that he had to be accountable for himself. He decided to start small, by walking around the block every morning. Over time, those short walks became longer, and eventually he joined a local walking group. Not only did he notice improvements in his fitness and energy levels, but he also found a sense of camaraderie with his fellow walkers. What had started as a simple way to keep moving became one of the highlights of his day, reinforcing his commitment to staying active. Monica, in her early 70s, discovered that living alone gave her the space and time to address an area of her life she had long neglected: her mental health. For years, she had placed herself at the bottom of her priority list, always putting work, family, and caregiving ahead of her own well-being. But once she was living alone, she realized she had no more excuses. For the first time in decades, she began prioritizing herself. She started seeing a therapist, something she had thought about for years but never acted on. She also incorporated meditation into her daily routine, setting aside quiet moments to breathe, reflect, and reconnect with herself. The changes were gradual, but she soon noticed a marked improvement in her mood and outlook. She realized that taking care of her mental well-being was not a luxury or an act of selfishness. It was essential. Living alone helped her understand that self-care was something she not only deserved, but needed in order to fully embrace this stage of life. Another unexpected benefit of living alone is the ability to embrace creativity in cooking. Without the need to cater to the preferences of others, many older adults find a renewed sense of enjoyment in the kitchen. Some take the opportunity to experiment with flavors and ingredients they had never tried before, while others simplify their meals, creating a routine that provides both nourishment and comfort. Susan, a woman in her mid-60s, shared how cooking became a new source of joy for her after moving into her own place. Throughout her life, she had always cooked for others, whether it was for her family or friends. But now, for the first time, she had complete freedom in the kitchen. Without anyone else's tastes to consider, she started experimenting with different cuisines, exploring recipes she had always been curious about but never had the chance to try. What began as a way to fill time became a passion. She now looks forward to planning new meals each week, finding excitement in the process of discovering and creating. Cooking is no longer a task. It is something she enjoys, a ritual that brings her happiness and a sense of accomplishment. Frank, a 72-year-old widower, took a different but equally meaningful approach. Instead of experimenting with elaborate recipes, he focused on simplifying his meals. When his wife was alive, she had always taken care of the cooking, and after she passed, he initially struggled with the idea of preparing meals for one. But rather than seeing it as a burden, he decided to create a system that made cooking easier and more enjoyable. He developed a weekly menu filled with simple, nutritious dishes that required minimal effort but provided everything he needed to stay healthy. Sticking to this routine gave him peace of mind, knowing that he was eating well without the stress of planning meals every day. What he had once viewed as a necessity became a comforting part of his daily life, a small but significant aspect of his independence that he now looked forward to at the end of each day. Both Susan and Frank's experiences highlight how living alone changes the way people approach meals. For some, it becomes an opportunity for creativity and self-expression, while for others, it is a chance to establish comforting routines. Regardless of the approach, one common theme remains. The act of cooking for oneself is not just about sustenance. It is a reflection of self-care, a way to nurture both body and soul while embracing the freedom that comes with living independently. Living alone in old age is not about isolation, it is about freedom. It is a time to rediscover who you are, to embrace the things that bring you joy, and to live at a pace that feels right for you. Whether it means reconnecting with forgotten passions, finding comfort in the stillness of your own space, or creating new routines that truly reflect your needs, this stage of life is yours to shape. This is a time to embrace and celebrate. You have spent years caring for others, adapting to responsibilities and meeting expectations. Now, you have the opportunity to design your days exactly as you choose, free from compromise. There is a deep sense of fulfillment in realizing that living alone is not a limitation, but a chance to create the life you have always wanted. Take this journey one day at a time, knowing that it is never too late to find happiness, purpose, and peace in your own company. If you have your own experiences to share, I would love to hear them. Thank you for watching, and if you found this video helpful, remember to like and subscribe for more. Living alone in your later years can be an incredibly empowering experience. It's a time to embrace independence, pursue hobbies, and maintain a sense of control over your life. However, ensuring safety, convenience, and staying connected to loved ones is crucial. Based on conversations with real people who have navigated this path, here's a detailed guide to must-have assistive devices, paired with real-life experiences to make this information relatable and actionable. Falls are one of the leading causes of injury among seniors, yet many underestimate the importance of wearable emergency systems. Devices like Life Alert, Philips Lifeline, and Apple Watches with fall detection features can truly be life-saving. One man shared a story about his father who slipped while gardening. His Apple Watch detected the fall and automatically alerted emergency services. "By the time I got there, help was already on the way," he wrote. These smart devices now come with GPS tracking, which can be a lifesaver for active seniors. If you're out walking your dog or traveling alone, these systems pinpoint your exact location in case of an emergency. Some advanced models also include wellness monitoring, tracking heart rates, blood pressure, and activity levels, helping detect early warning signs of health issues. With wearable emergency response devices, you get peace of mind knowing that help is always within reach. Whether you're at home or outside, managing daily medications can be one of the biggest challenges for older adults. Forgetting a dose or taking the wrong medication can have serious health consequences. Luckily, devices like MedMinder, Livy, and Hero have eliminated the guesswork in medication management. A retired schoolteacher, Betty, once shared how she struggled with a drawer full of pill bottles, making it hard to keep track of her medications. "After switching to an automatic dispenser, I feel much more in control. It beeps when it's time, and I can't open it at the wrong time. It's foolproof," she explained. These smart pill dispensers can be a game changer for seniors. Locked compartments prevent accidental overdoses or taking the wrong medication. Some models send alerts to caregivers if a dose is missed, ensuring loved ones are informed. Certain dispensers notify users when a refill is needed, preventing lapses in essential medications. With automatic pill dispensers, you never have to second-guess your medication routine again. They simplify your day and ensure you take your prescriptions safely and on time. Housekeeping can become increasingly difficult as we age. Bending, reaching, and pushing heavy vacuum cleaners can strain your body. That's where robotic vacuum cleaners, such as iRoba, Roomba, Roborock, or Eufy, come in. One elderly man shared how his Roomba made a significant difference in his home. "I used to worry about tripping over dirt or debris, but now my floors are spotless and I didn't even lift a finger. It's one less thing to think about." These robotic vacuums offer several benefits. Obstacle detection helps the vacuum navigate around furniture, shoes, and even pet messes. Scheduled cleanings allow you to set a time for the vacuum to work while you relax or sleep. Newer models include mopping functions, keeping both carpets and hardwood floors clean. With a robotic vacuum, you can enjoy a consistently clean home without the physical strain of traditional vacuuming. By investing in these assistive technologies, seniors can maintain independence, ensure safety, and make daily life more manageable. Loneliness is often one of the most challenging aspects of living alone. However, digital photo frames like Skylight or NixPlay can bring daily joy by keeping loved ones visually connected, even from a distance. These frames allow families to upload photos remotely, ensuring that seniors receive constant updates on their loved ones' lives without needing to check social media or a smartphone. One great-grandmother, Evelyn, described receiving a digital photo frame as the best gift her daughter ever gave her. Each time I pass by, there's a new memory waiting to brighten my day. It's like they're here with me, she shared. Real-time photo updates mean